During this slideshow, you are going to create your own vocabulary notebook. In order to do this, you need a piece of construction paper, and you also need 4 sheets of plain white copy paper. Go ahead and fold those 4 white sheets in half. Fold your construction paper in half. Place the white paper inside the construction paper and put 3 staples through the folded side, the folded edge, thus creating a quick notebook. As far as orientation, it is suggested that you turn the notebook sideways and you write in landscape mode instead of portrait. So orient the paper, your book, sideways instead of the normal way that you would read a book. This will provide you more space for writing. The vocabulary notebook should be titled Cells, as we are going to cover information that pertains to cells. The first entry is the word cell. Definition is the basic unit of structure and function in living organisms. This is in all living organisms. Some characteristics of the cell: they form parts of organisms, they carry out all of the organism's processes, and they are microscopic. So in the top 2 quadrants, you're going to put in the top left quadrant the definition, the basic unit of structure and function in living organisms, and in the top right quadrant, different characteristics about cell. Now in the bottom left quadrant and the bottom right quadrant, you'll notice a different color text, and that is because you are to write your own sentence using the vocabulary word, which in this case is the word cell, in the bottom left quadrant. And in the bottom right quadrant, you are going to illustrate, which means to draw, your own picture for the vocabulary word. Now I realize at this point in time it might be difficult for you to draw an accurate picture of a cell. However, once you learn more about them, you can come back and add this, or you can do your best attempt if you have some prior knowledge. Go ahead and pause this at this time, and that will give you enough time to finish copying the information down and create your sentence and your illustration. Once you are ready, go ahead and click play and resume, and it will play to the next slide. The next slide is microscope. That next word, microscope, it is an instrument that makes small objects look larger. There are different styles of microscopes. The most common one that you are going to be encountering is the compound microscope. The microscope magnifies small objects, and some use light and lenses to magnify. Go ahead and pause at this time. One of the next words that you are going to encounter in this unit is cell theory. It's more of a phrase. This is an explanation of the relationship between cells and living things. It is composed of 3 different statements that are all indicated in the top right quadrant. The first of those 3, all living things are composed of cells. So this is true, this is known, that anything and everything that is living is composed of cells. The second thing is cells are the basic units of structure and function in living things. And the third and final thing, all cells are produced from other cells. Go ahead and pause before moving on. The next thing we're going to look at is some vocabulary that is going to involve the inner workings of cells, more of the actual components of cells and the structure of cells themselves. The first of is the word organelles. The word organelles refers to the smaller structures within a cell that carry out specific functions. Organelles could be essentially any of the following vocabulary words. If you want to think of them, you can think of them like human organs within our body if the human body was one cell, like your heart, your lungs, your stomach. Those all have different functions, different jobs to do within your body, but they all work together to make your body work. So each has a different function, and they are like organs to the human body, organelles to cells, like organs to the human body. Go ahead and pause if you need to. The next vocabulary word is the cell wall. This refers to the rigid layer of non-living material that surrounds the cells of plants and some other organisms. It is rigid for protection and support. Plants have them. It's very, very common in plants. Animals tend not to have these. There are some other organisms that have them, but animals tend not to have them, and that's because of the rigidity of them. They are mostly made of cellulose. Go ahead and pause if necessary. Moving on, within the cell wall is the cell membrane. So this is the next inner barrier that surrounds the cells of plants and all other organisms. Now, if an organism does not have a cell wall, this will be the outermost barrier. And so in animals, this is the outermost barrier. And you and me, this is our outermost barrier of our cells. This allows materials to pass through while keeping certain things out. It happens to also be more flexible in cell walls, more permeable. When it's referring to allowing materials to pass through, that's referring to the word permeable, whether something has a high permeability or low permeability. Go ahead and pause it. The next vocabulary word is nucleus. Nucleus is the large oval structure within the cell, and it acts like the brain of the cell. So this controls all the cell's activities. It's made of the nucleolus, chromatin, and the nuclear envelope. Go ahead and pause. The next vocabulary word is cytoplasm, and that refers to the clear, thick, gel-like fluid that fills the inside of the cell membrane. So within the cell membrane, you have the cytoplasm. Okay? Besides that, you have the organelles. So your entire cell is full of either cytoplasm, right? And then inside the cytoplasm, you have organelles. If you think of a bowl of jello, and inside the jello, you have fruit cups, little pieces of fruit, right, cut up into chunks. So those chunks would be the organelles. The actual jello itself, provided it's not firm and rigid, right, would be like the cytoplasm. The bowl, okay, or the container that you have it in would refer to the cell membrane and the cell wall. Okay, so the cytoplasm is the clear, thick, gel-like fluid that fills the inside of the cell membrane. Notice that it is constantly moving, that it fills the entire cell, and organelles can actually be found moving around inside it. Go ahead and pause. The next organelle that we're going to talk about is the mitochondria or mitochondrium. The rod-shaped structure that you see in cells are the mitochondria, and they are the rod-shaped structures that convert food into energy for the cell. They're known as the powerhouse, if you would, of the cell, and muscle cells contain a lot of them. And that kind of makes sense because muscle cells need a lot of energy. Go ahead and pause. The next vocabulary word is more commonly referred to as the ER, the endoplasmic reticulum. The endoplasmic reticulum carries proteins and other materials from one part of the cell to another. It's made up of a bunch of different passageways. That's why we say a maze of passageways. Ribosomes, which is the next word that you guys are going to be introduced to, they're attached to it, right? And so it is one part of the cell that will help transport proteins and other materials through part of the cell. Go ahead and pause. The next vocabulary word is ribosome. The ribosome are the organelles that produces proteins. So these are found on the endoplasmic reticulum or found on the ER. They are also free floating in the cytoplasm. So they're just hanging out in the cytoplasm, floating around as well. They are a small grain-like structure. So if you were to try to compare them, right, the ER is much larger. Even the nucleus is much larger. Mitochondria they are larger than the ribosomes. Okay? The next vocabulary word is the Golgi body. Now, the Golgi body, they receive the proteins and other new materials from the endoplasmic reticulum, and they package them up and they transport them again to another part of the cell. So these are the flattened sacs and tubes that are nearby the endoplasmic reticulum. Usually they're smooth. They do not have the ribosomes attached to them. Okay? And the Golgi body operates more like a mailroom, where it's just pushing things through, sending things in different directions, trying to get things around the cell for it. One of the next vocabulary words is chloroplast. Chloroplasts are found in plant cells, mainly because this is what gives them their green color. All right, they are organelles that capture the sun's energy and produce food from it. As animals, we really don't have a need for the chloroplast, and that's why it's found just in the plant cells. There is a typo on there. On this one, that third bullet does not need to be there. More flexible than cell walls. Go ahead and pause. So just 2 bullets on this one, just 2. The next vocabulary word is vacuole. The vacuole is the large water-filled sac that is the storage area for the cell. Most plant cells have one. Some animal cells do, some don't. But mainly it is to store food, waste, and other materials for the cell. Go ahead and pause it. And finally, the last vocabulary word is lysosome. The lysosome is a small round structure that contains chemicals that help break down different materials in the cell. So they break down food, they break down old cell parts, and they're kind of like the cleanup crew of the cell. They break things down and they help get rid of them. And that wraps up all 15 vocabulary words that you will need for this unit. Make sure that you do have 15. Again, make sure that you have sentences that have the actual word, right? The vocabulary word that is in the center of the slide. Make sure you have those in your sentence. And then make sure to do your best to draw a picture of that word.